All right, Geller, let's get this underway. All right, so I'm gonna give you a heads up. I'm gonna do a little more than just mixing on this. I gotta fix some timing issues on the sample that I'm hearing. So let's begin doing this. I want to keep a copy of the original. I need another blank one. Let's begin. Oh, I'm gonna get rid of all these effects you have because I want to start clean slate. And I gotta ask you what's going on with ozone here. You don't need it. Trust me. Not need it. Let's throw default on there. Also, um, organize this. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? This. Look. Here's the problem. Let me point something out to you that I'm noticing here. So I noticed you have EQs here that are hold on, I'm in the way. You're not gonna be able to see it if I'm in. Let me move myself for a second. So you have the EQ here that's bringing up highs, right? And mids around 1.5K. But then you have this EQ that's cutting those highs that you just brought up here. You see, so now we have a problem because these two EQs on the same channel are doing opposite things. So you got to decide, do you want to cut the highs or do you want to add the highs? You can't do both at the same exact time because you might as well not have either of them, right? You see what I'm saying? So the same thing here. So 1.5K, where's 1.5K? 1.5K is like right here. So here, 1.5K is below the neutral line. So it's cut technically. But then here, it's boosted. So you see what I'm saying? You gotta be careful with this because it's easy to get carried away as you're mixing, as you're going, and then you're like, oh man, I gotta add high here, or I gotta cut high or cut low, or whatever frequency you decide on. But then if you're not keeping track of this, like, see, you may, I'm almost sure you did this by accident. You boosted here, but then you cut here the same frequency. You cut the high, you boosted the high. This is they're clashing right now. We don't want that. So that's why I'm just gonna reset everything, and obviously, as usual, I'm gonna explain my entire process as I go. So I'm just gonna put defaults on here. Let's get rid of all that. Organize everything. So your samples, hold on, all this. I don't want to hear anything except the main sample. Okay, so these two are on channel 1. What is this? This is your bass. Okay. Do you have anything on your bass? No, that's okay. Perfect. What's the next sound? Your drums. You have a multi-band compressor and a soft clipper. I like the soft clipper. I do not like your setting on the soft clipper. But again, I'm going to take it all off. And as we mix, I'm going to explain the method to my madness. So, drums, bass. And again, keep everything together. So let's bring everything left. I like to work like this. What's next? You have these chops here, but I think because you did this in Serato, I don't have access to it, but I don't think I need it because I have this main sample here. And then, so this little drum break here. I want this on its own channel. So the way I do this is right on the sample, I do make unique. And you're gonna notice on the left side here, it's gonna make a copy of it. And the reason why I want to make it unique is because I want to put it in the tone mixer channel because I want to control its volume independently. So make unique. See, so it's this one right here, the second one. I want to bring this down, put this in its own channel. See, so now I can control it. The same thing with this first one here too. I'm gonna put this one, I'm gonna make unique. Put this in its own channel as well. Yes. Here we go. So now we have our 3 pieces. We can organize them in the order they come in. All right, so there we go. There we go. All right, so now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These sample chops can go because, like I said, did that somewhere else. And then this was just a copy I made. We're not going to touch that. So here's our beat. And reset all that. Reset all that. We don't need anything. Everything's organized. All right. And I saved this as a separate copy anyways. So as a separate FLP. So now we can begin. Let's start with the sample. And like I said initially, so I found some timing issues in here. And I'll show you how I personally fix that. It's not always perfect, but you see, so I can already see this little hit here is not hitting where I think it should be, right? So we're gonna do this. We're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna move this over a little bit. I'm gonna line these up. You see, these two here are not hitting right. So this one's fine. We gotta move these two, and you can see it by the peaks right here. We kind of want these. We want these two lined up. And again, you gotta like hear this out. It's not as simple as like I'm just moving them visually and they're right. You gotta listen to it. See, this first one doesn't sound right to me, so I'll have to come back and fix that. See how much better that sounds now on time because I shifted it. And you see, this one sounded good. So I almost need to duplicate whatever is happening here. Yeah, I almost need to duplicate this. These are slightly off, and when I say slightly, I mean like I can hear them. You can actually see them if you look at the lines. See how this peak comes before the line, and this peak comes before the line. Now it doesn't sound bad. We could leave it. Because listen to the click, the metronome. You see? So those are on time. Those are good. And then we come to the second part of the sample. So now this gap here, we got to fix this gap. And we're going to have to embellish a little bit here. Add like, just duplicate that and see how it sounds. It may not sound right. We're about to find out. You see? Perfect. Because it's a quick transition. See, this sounds better than just leaving a gap. You see, that gap sounded weird. See, these are more on time. And I didn't have to move these. So again, because a lot of this, you know, if you know anything, you know, about like older music, you know, all of this is played live. So timing is not, it's not perfect. Everything is not gonna be right on the metronome. But when it comes to chopping, If your drums are hitting right on time and your sample isn't, that's why sometimes you have to do little shifts, you know, minor adjustment. Again, doesn't have to be perfect right on time hitting with every little metronome. See, now here it starts to shift again. You can kind of see it moving over, so these need to go this way. Maybe starting around here. Let's move that down because we don't want that little hump there. See, this one comes in too soon here. Again, same thing, chop that up. This little bump here, we actually want this. See, but we gotta be careful because the rest of these are on time. So we really only want to move this one. This one. Which means we truncate this back, merge these, and let's see. See, seamless. You didn't even hear that. This little piece right here all by itself, right? So the rest of this is fine, right? So I need this piece here. And this to move over, and let's bring this back because the rest of this is fine over here. To bring this back, blend it. You can see this is off time. I want to fix that. Back. Bring this back. We got to shift this, but let's see if the rest of it is on time. We can move it a little bit and then just cut it like right here because the rest of this is fine. So let's see. This, bring this back. Like I said, the rest of this is fine. Blend this back. You see how those sound off now? So now we got to bring these back. And you can see one hit after the line. This is way off the line. But you got to do these like one at a time. See, so this is like patience matters. That's all I'm going to say. Patience matters. You cannot really rush this because you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. It's going to sound bad if you rush it. So here's the next one. This one should be like right here. So cut. This. See, because this one's good, but now this one's not good. So this one actually needs to be forward. See, but this isn't a matter of anything you did. This is a matter of the way the original track was recorded. So that's why I said, like, you have to really be careful and take your time with this because this isn't an issue of just like, oh, you made a mistake when you picked the sample or you looped it wrong. It's not that simple. It's just the way these recordings are. So right here, I heard this little bump off. So let's move this to here. That back, line it up. Or here. And then it looks like you did this 3 times, right? So once we fix this whole first section, obviously we're just going to duplicate it. Duplicate that. You just shift these over a little tiny bit. Top again. Get rid of the spike here, but bring this back because we want the blend. This one's a little late. Cut tool, cut tool, cut. Bring this back. This one should be like here, I think. We're going to hear it out. And these two are late. These two should be hitting in earlier, right? These two should be hitting around there. The same problem we had before with this little section. Very minor, nothing crazy, but they are a little early. Move them over a tiny bit. Also, that actually sounded good up until about here. Let's fix that. Only this part here hit too early. Like everything else was fine. This part here hit too early. Actually, this part This part is slightly late. Is it? That's off right there. I know you heard that. We'll begin here. Fix that. The first one sounded good. The second one, not really. This one. This one sounded off. But I can already tell it's gonna move these. Let's move these back. Right. Right here, we kind of lose the timing again. I'm trying to figure out where the loop is. Although I chopped more than half of it already, so I guess I could just keep going and chopping the rest. Little stutter here. I'll finish the chops for now. I'll go back and finish the rest of these. I want to start kind of mixing everything to start getting a feel for what's going on. We'll start with the drums. We're not going to start with the bass. And actually, we'll start with the sample. So for the sample, you had a bunch of effects in here. Now, I have some preloaded effects. You can't see them because of the way OBS records, but I'm going to add them and I'll go through them. So what these effects are is there's a filter that just cuts the lows. And the reason why I always cut the lows on samples or melodies in general is because I want to leave this room for the kick and your sub or bass line or whatever you use. So it's not much. I'm not cutting much, as you can tell. It's like literally from 100 down. It's nothing like this, you know. Then the sample sounds too thin if you do that. So it's really like at 100. It's just a slight cut. It's not that major. Like I said, it's just to make space for your kick and your bass line. The second effect I have is a slight reverb. It's just to give it space because I want to make the main melody wide, but not ultra wide. Like you don't want all the way left, right. That might sound good in headphones, but it's not gonna sound good everywhere. So you just want to create a little bit of width. And if you look down here at the bottom of the mixer, that's what this is. This is just making it more stereo versus more mono. It's just like a slight, you gotta like just feel it out. You know, there's no precise number I can give you of like how much I put. I just kind of feel it out, but it's everything is in small increments. Think of everything like cooking, right? You wouldn't necessarily season something using like just salt, for example, right? Like if you were gonna use salt, pepper, and whatever, Cajun seasoning, whatever you like, you would do a little bit of everything until you found that right balance. You wouldn't just do a lot of one thing, right? or a lot of several things, because you'd over season it and it'd be nasty. So everything is just slight bits of everything to create the perfect balance at the end. So and then again, stereo enhancer. Even though I'm doing a little stereo here, I prefer the effect. You can use any stereo enhancer effect. Don't get caught up into, what is this one? This is the same thing like with my filter. Like you look at this and think like, oh, what if I don't have fab filter? I can literally do this with the fruity parametric EQ. Do a high pass, cut around 100. Same thing. So it's just, it doesn't matter which tool you're using, just as long as you know how to use the tool, right? So, I know with VSTs and plugins, people get caught up into like, oh, I need that specific plugin because this person used that specific plugin. But then you realize like all they're doing is just an EQ, it's just a compressor, it's just a reverb, it's just a delay. As long as you know what a reverb does, what a delay does, you can use any one, right? So, I get the same low cut with the parametric EQ. Like this is the fruity reverb. This is the built-in plugin. The same thing with this delay. The delay is also very minor. It's like a quick slap delay because this kind of works in combination with the stereo. This is more about giving it width, right? That's what the delay is doing. It's not really delaying the sample. Like we don't want to hear it delayed. It's just playing with the dynamics to create width. That's one of the things reverb is used for, and delays is to create width. You can do a lot of different things with reverb and delay. So, and then you see like you can kind of hear it play out, but you only hear that when I stop it. When I'm playing the sample, it just sounds wide. Like watch, I'll take off the effects. See how it kind of centers? And now when I put them all back, it kind of gets wide again. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just creating a little bit of width. Why? Because we're going to want all the drums in the middle. Drums in the middle, bass in the middle, snare, hi-hats. Just samples outside. Get it? All right. So now we can go to the drums. And at the beginning of this, like I said, you had a compressor and a soft clipper. I like the soft clipper. I did not like the setting you had on a soft clipper. We'll start there. This drum loop sounds good. So I would just slightly drop the threshold just so we're not clipping it. And so again, this goes back to what I said. You just want to do very slight amounts of everything. You don't want to like hammer this sample like this. And I think you had something like super high like this, which this is almost doing nothing, right? You want like just slight. So now we could look at the bass. Now for the bass, I have another template that I like to use as a guide. So I'm gonna add it here. And this is something that I put into all my bass lines or subs. Doesn't matter if I'm using an 808, if it's like a VST sub I gotta play out. It doesn't matter. I start here. The first one is a limiter. The limiter is really working like a soft clipper here. It's not really hammering down the sound. It's doing enough to make it sound louder without me coming down here. Like really, I was gonna say without me coming down here and adding volume, but I'm kind of adding it with the gain. So it's kind of the same thing, but. So let's take this off so you can hear it. You see, I'm controlling it up here. The purple is the gain. And that's all it is. So this limiter is just working like a clipper. It's just creating a ceiling for any bass that I use to say, hey, don't go past here. All right. I don't care if you need to rumble with the whole building. Don't go past here. Because we don't want to distort. There's a difference between loud and distortion. We don't want distortion. At least not loudness distortion. You'll see in a second why I say that. So my second plugin, this one is from RBass. Unfortunately, I haven't found like a built-in FL Studio equivalent to this. Simply because this is just one of the best bass plugins I've ever used. I'm going to continue to use. So, and what I do with RBass is I find the main frequency that the sub or the bass is hitting, and I usually just do that by adding an EQ, and I just look. So right here, more or less. So let's say 60, 62. Again, we're not looking for exact numbers because as you can tell, it's a curve, right? We're not looking for like, all right, what's this specific peak here? Like, I don't care about that. I just want visually what looks like the middle to me. So let's say 60. So at 60 hertz over here, I'm gonna set this frequency. I usually stay a little above it. So like, I usually say like 10 hertz above it. So if it's 60, I'll stay around 70. If it's 70, I'll stay around 80. Because this plugin is like very precise. So I'll keep it at 70. I'll watch if it's clipping here. If it hits red. It's not. But for anyways, I'll just put it at -1 just to make myself feel better. And I may or may not add a little bit more intensity back into it. And if I do, again, maybe a decibel, nothing crazy. Like I'm not up here cranking it. Like that would just, you know. So I'll just add like a decibel or two. Right? And then now we get back to the distortion thing I said a few minutes ago. I don't want natural distortion from like, oh, I just have the volume too high, so it's distorting. We don't want that. I add my own distortion that I can control. And now the only reason I add this is because depending on what the listener is using, what kind of headphones, earbuds, if they're in a car, if their car has a great sound system or it's the factory sound system from whatever the car is, basses are gonna sound different to everyone. Some people may not even hear them, like I said, because you may just have some regular $10 earbuds that just don't capture low frequencies below like 100 hertz. So those people will never hear the bass line, and they might love a track and completely be missing that bottom end that it was made with, right? Particularly in hip hop, if we're being honest. So what this distortion does, and as you can see, it's just slice. So this is just the natural with nothing on it. I add just a little bit to the mix because by adding distortion, artificial distortion, this helps those people with, let's say, more generic headphones or earbuds. It helps those people feel the bass that they wouldn't otherwise feel or hear. See, so you hear that? See, nothing, right? See, they can now feel that bass in their little earbuds or headphones, and everybody gets the same experience now of this track. And like I said, it's only a little bit. Don't get carried away. Don't go do this. Unless that's what you're going for. Obviously, if that's what you're going for, then do all the distortion you want. But I know for a fact that's not what you're going for on this beat, right? You just want like a classic hip hop, you know, sub at the bottom that rumbles. So we'll play all the sounds. And so once I have it to where I feel like, hey, this is the right rumble, now then I just control the volume here. See? That's basically it. Like, that's the mix, you know? So I'm gonna finish chopping this back here, and then we'll tackle these, but these will be easy because it looks like you just did these as fillers. Actually, we'll probably do these right now. And remember at the beginning, I put these on their own channel because I want to control how loud or how low they are. Like, I don't want these mixed in the same channel as your main drums. Because maybe I don't want these as loud as the main drums, right? So I put them in their own channel, and now I can come over here and kind of make them into background noises. See? See, that sounds better. This introduction here sounds better than if they were at the same sound as your main drums, because these are percussions, you know. They're supposed to sit in the background of everything. They're supposed to sit behind your drums. So see, and if you notice it, the bass, not only can you hear it, but you can actually feel the bass, which is really what the bass is. The bass is an instrument that is felt, you know. You're supposed to feel that in like your chest cavity. You know, if you're in a car, you're supposed to feel the bass throughout the car itself, right? It's not like a snare that you gotta hear the snappiness, or a hi-hat that you gotta hear that shine. Your sub is a felt instrument, so you need to figure out, like, how do I get everybody to feel this sound? So, and that's why that artificial distortion is so important. You see how that sounded off time right here? Like, listen to your drum versus, and you can actually see it visually. Look, see this line is not lining up with this drum, and then look how badly misaligned this is right here from this drum, and then look how badly this one is misaligned from this drum. These three are supposed to be hitting together, but now you have a problem, which is what I described earlier. The way the original artist played this, it's not as simple as just moving this left and right. You have to chop it. You don't have a choice. You know, so you'll get this first one in line, but look, the second two are still not in line. So, and that's why I said you really have to take your time with this. You know, you can't just be like, oh, I gotta get this done fast. Well, it's not gonna sound right. It's not gonna sound right. You gotta come in here and line these up, and you gotta do them individually. You can't cheat the system. You can't shortcut it, because you're gonna hear it in your quality. You know, sorry to tell you. Not you specifically, Guller, but like people in general. Can't cheat the system. You gotta come in here, move these, and listen and play it back and make sure it sounds right. See? That sounds way better. That sounds 100 times better. We could leave this one. Again, everything doesn't have to be perfect. It's seasoning, you know, it sounds good. It doesn't sound off time. If I put the metronome, you'll hear it. Like, even this sounds good here. Even this one here sounds good, even though you can clearly tell they're not hitting together. But right here, this is like a millisecond, right? So you can't really hear it. These sound good too, but I do want to move them a slight bit. No, not that one. Let's start with this one. Like, just a hair. Just a hair. And you might think like, oh, is that really gonna make a difference? Maybe not. You know, now this is just like my ADD kicking in. That sounded off to me. Starting right here. This one's good. These are not. It actually starts over here. It actually starts there. See, so we want to move these over. Yeah, see, these are really off. But we got to blend. This one's still off. This one needs to be moved more. The first one's all right, even though it's a little bit off the time. And what's helping you here is that you don't have drums. So the first one's okay. But the second one sounds, this one, the second one here sounds too off. See, it sounds like it like stutters in. So we want to move this. You see, that sounded terrible. See, these two are super late. These two should be like here. Right here. See, so this is what I mean. So even though this piece right here is on time, we have to shorten it to create the space for these two. So only way to do this is to chop, because the original sample, the original way this was played, just doesn't account for that. See, and these are off. They're off just enough where even though there's no drums, it's making this section sound off time. So we need to fix that. I don't like the way this ends. It ends very abrupt. I don't know how this is gonna sound, but try it. See what happens. That's how you're gonna end it. See, very dramatic. So let's listen to this. And now for the master effects, because you had stuff in here and then you had ozone, and I told you didn't need to stick to that. So again, I use template that I guide myself from. There is one plugin I add, but this is just for visual reference. It's just a metering plugin. You can use any metering plugin. Again, all I care about, the plugin is not doing anything, right? There's no effects in here. I'm just visually looking at the perceived loudness. And I want it somewhere between -14, -12. Really closer to -14. We don't really want to be in the red, even though this is perceived loudness. So red here, around -12, it's not really giving you distortion. If you go maybe closer to -10, then you're gonna have some problems. And you'll see why in a second. And by the way, the mastering chain, what is it? It's just a simple EQ that cuts the very, very, very lows at 30 hertz and very, very highs at over 16,000 hertz. Not entirely noticeable to the human ear, but if you're playing it in a really good system or car, things like that, the louder you get, the highs might be too screechy in your ears and the lows might be too rumbly. So this is just a generic cut. There's a clipper that's like it's barely doing anything. Again, it's just there kind of to create this. Um, Same thing with a multi-band compressor. This is working similar to like that limiter I had on the sub. It's just like barely creating a ceiling to just say like, hey, don't go past here. And I can actually add more gain, more volume from here, which I will in a second. And the reason why I will is because I'm using my meter to see like, okay, where's my perceived loudness right now? So I'm gonna wait for the drums to come in because it looks low now, but this could jump later. So let's see. All right, so it's not going high enough to where I want it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of gain. Again, everything in small doses, and just keep your eye on things. We don't need all this. I'm gonna close all this so it doesn't distract. So a little bit more gain. And I don't add all the gain from here. Like I don't just crank this up until I get it to where I want it. I maybe add a decibel or two, and then the rest is just I actually just turn my volumes up. Because if you look at all these sounds, I created headroom in my mixer down here. Yeah, so I created headroom in all my sounds here. So now I have the liberty of selecting them all. I have the liberty of selecting them all and turning them up. And as I turn them up though, keep in mind, I may still have to come in here and maybe tweak these individually, you know, because maybe now the sample's too high, maybe the drums are too high, maybe the bass is too high. But look at my perceived loudness now. See, I got it to where I want it, between -14, -12. You might not be able to see that. I can't make this any bigger, but it's there. It's right here, right where my arrow is. So the bass, a little high. Let's turn it down a little bit because remember, you want to feel bass. You don't want to hear it. Also, I know what it's supposed to sound like in my specific headphones. So this also becomes a matter of how you're mixing. If you're mixing in headphones, if you're mixing with external monitors, get used to your equipment and learn your equipment. I know where bass is supposed to, what it's supposed to sound like, what it's supposed to feel like based on my specific headphones. So this is why I don't like to get caught up in the numbers, because early on that was a mistake I made. I'm like, oh man, how loud should the volume be? What number? How much, how much should I cut this EQ by? How much should I add by? The numbers don't mean much because all of that's gonna change. It's all perceived loudness to a degree. To a degree, I'm like obviously 60 dBs is 60 dBs, but to a degree, like me mixing this sub bass with these headphones, it's gonna sound either louder or lower than someone else who mixes in either, I don't know, some $1,000 headphones or two external monitors. And it depends which kind of monitors they're using. What's the low end response of those monitors? You know what I mean? It all goes back to like the listener. What is the listener using to listen to this? So it's gonna sound a little different to everyone. So that's why I cannot give you a number of how loud is this bass. Learn your equipment and assess from there is like the best thing I could tell you. So that's it. That's the whole mix. I hope I was detailed enough. I think I was too detailed personally, but I like details. I like information. I'm an information data nerd, and I like to know what's going on, so I try to explain things that way. I try to explain my approach, and obviously there's no one size fits all, but guides. That's why I talk a lot about how I use templates for mixing. I have a sub template, I have a mastering channel template. I like to start with a guide and then adjust from there. Helps me work faster, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you until the next one. So, and if you got questions, send them my way.